Hello, I'm Kevin and welcome back to the Ipswich River, part 2 in my series of looking at the river from above using an aerial drone. But before we get there, I wanted to show you it's kind of shallow right now. So if you want to paddle this section of the river, you might want to check the water level before putting your boat in the water upstream, because there are some parts here that aren't deep enough for a paddle. Right now, middle of June, we haven't seen any significant rain for 6 or 7 weeks. It's really bad. And this can happen through the North Reading section. In fact, as you're going underneath the Park Street Bridge, I don't care what kind of boat you have, there's only got about 2 inches of water right now, so you definitely have to get out of your boat and drag it over the rocks. That's the way it is. Definitely recommend this section of the river when there's more water, because it's shady, it's beautiful. For now, we're going to skip this section and go past the Haverhill Street Bridge, past the Park Street Bridge, past the Elm Street Bridge. The three are right close to each other. We're going to pick up filming with an aerial drone a little bit further up. Both the Park Street Bridge and the Elm Street Bridge are on Route 62. They are sizable concrete and steel bridges owned by the state. But shortly after you get past those bridges, you come across this small private bridge. Looks like a driveway. I don't really know where this goes, but this particular bridge can be a problem at high water. There's been multiple times where there wasn't enough vertical clearance under the bridge for both the boat and my fat head, so I had to float the boat under the bridge while I walked over the bridge. You'll catch glimpses of Route 62 off to the left corner there, and very soon the trees disappear between the river and the highway. You get lots of trees on the right-hand side, but you see it gets very, very open. Not many trees, very twisty. There's some Canada geese swimming in the river down there, and off to the left there's a pair of geese. Anytime I come across a pair of geese in my boat, I greet them as George and Gracie. I don't know, it just amuses me. Lots of Canada geese out here on the river in North Reading. They nest here, they raise families here. If you're paddling the river and you come across a family with young goslings, the adults will quietly escort the young ones onto dry land because your boat looks big and scary. But if they don't have young ones, they typically will just try and swim away from you. And they don't swim that fast, so they really can't get away. And they honk a lot, as if to say, hey, stop following me. It's annoying, but, well, they live here, and I'm a visitor, so. Very twisty through North Reading. The word that comes to mind is serpentine. Paddling the river, I'm aware that it's twisty, but I'm not really appreciating exactly how twisty it is until I see it from the air like this. It's crazy. I mean, sometimes I look at this and I think it's comical, and sometimes it's beautiful. But it's certainly more fun than just a straight section of river. There are straight sections, but through North Reading you get this very serpentine stuff. This is the tightest turn. This is a 14-foot boat, and to turn this boat around this corner, it's a matter of reaching forward with the paddle and pushing the bow off to one side. You look through the river, it gets orange in color. That's because the water is shallow, and that's a sandy spot. It's a bit of a sandbar. If you have a boat with a keel on the bottom, you're going to have a real problem because they don't turn very tight. The river stays kind of broad like this. It looks like it disappears into the trees up there, but it doesn't hop over these pine trees, and you see it's still broad. It gets kind of zigzaggy. But I want to pause from our aerial tour of the river to show you this stretch of land. See, there's a straight line there. It's an old abandoned railroad bed. If you're paddling this section of river, you can pull over your boat and get out, stretch your legs, take a walk. You can see there's no sign of railroad here anymore. There's no tracks or railroad ties or anything. But somebody's done some trail maintenance. They cut this tree. And there are some tire tracks, be they bicycle or motorcycle, I don't know. The only official way into this place for walking and biking that I'm aware of is at South Middleton Dam, near the Bostic Corporation in South Middleton. That's also the northern terminus of the Independence Greenway, which is a bike and walking path that's been paved over. Now, no doubt that is the same rail system. If you look on Google Maps and you zoom in very, very closely here, you will see it on the map. I think it shows up as a green dashed line labeled Salem and something Railroad. I don't remember. If you want to look up the history of it, you can probably find that online. But I know of one other way to get in here, and it's not really official, and, well, I'm not going to share it, but you can certainly get there from South Middleton Dam. And I'm inclined to think that the Independence Greenway possibly could go all the way to Wilmington, but it can't, because, again, if you look at Google Maps, you'll see that the right-of-way for the railroad has been taken over by some private property. Returning to the river, you'll see this brick utility building. The landward side has signage that says Lynn Water and Sewage. I presume it's an old pumping station, but Lynn no longer draws water from the Ipswich River. Shortly after that is a unmarked access road to that building. It has this medium-sized bridge. No problem getting under that. And then it goes past some residential property where the people's backyards directly abut the river. And I didn't film there in case I thought somebody might be sitting out in their backyard and didn't want me filming with an aerial drone in their backyard, so I just skipped that. That doesn't go on too long, and you get to this part where the river's very broad. We haven't seen this before. This is strange, but I presume the reason for it is the dam. So up at the top of the screen, you see the Bostic Corporation facility on the right, and the river comes to a point. That's where the dam is. So presumably the river got very, very broad because the water was dammed up. Now, as you approach the dam, you're going to see this concrete abutment on the left. And you think, oh, that's a nice place to pull over and dock and get out. No, don't do that, because that is right at the edge of the dam, and you don't want the current to sweep you over. Pull out on the left before you get there. And there's a sign on a tree there, but I don't know what that says. There's no warning signs here. There's no red flag saying, danger. No, none of that. So you don't want to get swept over this thing. It drops about 4 or 5 feet straight down. If you go over this in a boat, you're going to the hospital. All of the dams along the Ipswich River have been studied and considered for removal for ecological reasons, to return the river to its natural state. This dam has been studied and approved for removal, but it hasn't happened yet. I don't know why. That project has been held up, but someday you might come here and find there's no longer a dam. Now, after you get past the dam and you go under a bridge, this is the section of river directly adjacent to the Independence Greenway. It's up the hill to the right just a bit. I can barely see the guardrail along the bike path. So if you're walking or biking, you can just look over the fence and this is what you're going to see. For a stretch, the river continues straight as the bike path is straight, but sooner or later, the river starts doing what rivers do, and well, straight things and curly things don't go together. So they part company, but for a while they were right next to each other. As you can see, it's a little bit shallow. Sunlight is shining through and illuminating the sand on the bottom there. It's a very shady section of the river. The trees overhang. It's very quiet, peaceful here. But that's not going to last. It will open up into some very different terrain. But because the trees overhang the river, you might encounter debris, fallen tree limbs, entire tree trunks, In the winter time, when the snow load gets on the trees, it could drag them into the river. So anytime in the springtime, sometimes I might bring a folding pruning saw in case there's something I need to cut away. This particular year, I've never had to do that. Now, this is where the greenway is no longer nearby, and if you go 500 yards to the left, you'll find the Middleton DPW over there somewhere. Notice the trees are no longer hanging over the river and there's not so much shade. Nonetheless, there are lots of trees and they can cause debris to come down. There was nothing here I couldn't paddle around. There's plenty of room. But this is going to transition very shortly. Here we go. This is the trees get shorter and soon they disappear. There's no longer any trees next to the river, so that it's going to change very dramatically at this point. Coming in at the top of the frame, the river takes a dogleg turn to the left. If you miss it and go to the right, you're not going to get very far because you hit those power lines. And there's a culvert that's only 2 feet wide. It's a corrugated pipe, so you're going to hit that and say, oops, this is not right. Not to be concerned, just turn around. You've only missed your turn by 20 yards. It's very open now. The trees are no longer next to the river. You can use a single-bladed canoe paddle or a double-bladed kayak paddle. Plenty of width in the river for a wide paddle. Although there are not really any trees growing next to the river, there were some in the past, and you see here there's some trees that came down, and nothing you can't paddle around. Anything that's here has been here for years. And in the springtime each year, you're not going to find new debris in the river because there's no trees to come down in the wintertime. Anything that's here has been here a long time. Because there's no shade, you might want to bring a sunscreen and a hat. But it's a fun section of the river. It's enjoyable. You can get here from upstream. Or you can put in at Route 114. There's a nice boat landing right on the highway. And that's where we're going to end this video. It's coming up shortly. You can see it's very twisty through Middleton, but not as twisty as it was in North Reading. And some of these surprising broad turns, you can see there's a cutoff. The river has broken through. So as you're paddling through here, you have the choice of taking the long way around or maybe taking the shortcut. But there have been times when I saw a shortcut, tried to take it. I got halfway through before my boat got stuck, and I had to back up and take the long way. So some of these shortcuts will work and some of them won't. Maybe different at different times of the year. Coming up at the top of the screen, you see Route 114, and that's where the boat launch is up there. That's the end of my video. I hope you enjoyed this aerial tour of the Ipswich River, Part 2.